The next one's good too. The next one's a photographer. After her.
Cool. Who?
Jack Rosen.
No,
Hey, Peter, how you doing?
Sarah Solomon.
Solomon, Sarah.
Good, thanks for having me.
All right.
The next one's good too. The next one's a photographer. After her.
Cool. Who?
Hey, Peter, how you doing?
Sarah Solomon.
Solomon, Sarah.
Good, thanks for having me.
All right.
Is that feedback?
Yeah,
Who's the lead?
yeah, but I think that's on Peter. Hang on, let me see.
Hey, Peter, how you doing?
Okay, that's,
You click on the people in it.
yeah, I'm just gonna go there and just do this.
Yeah, then you can, he's muted. Or he is now.
Yeah, okay, perfect. All right,
We'll give Chuck a couple minutes.
yep,
We start.
I'm mute for just a second then.
Good evening. We'll call to order the January 10th, 2024 meeting of the Poolesville Planning Commission. First on the agenda are citizens' comments on agenda items. Anybody here to comment on any of the items on the agenda that aren't part of the agenda itself? Nope. Nobody waiting online for comments? Was Peter the one that?
Peter wants to speak on the Riverworks item. So I don't know if you want to take that now, or do you want to take it when that item comes up?
Let's take that now.
Okay. Peter, if you could unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Good evening. We're ready for your comments on the agenda item.
Okay, would you like me to speak now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I've already sent the comments in writing. Once again, I'm the neighbor across the street of the proposed Riverworks Theater. I am in favor of the project along with the entire community. I think it would be a great addition for Poolesville as far as cultural opportunities and stuff. However, my concern was the variance application requesting the 35 or 36 required spaces to be reduced to 5 parking spaces. We've talked about this before. I believe, again, from what my understanding is, Riverworks is seeking to fulfill this parking requirement using off-site parking. So I'm questioning why the request for variance down to 5. I think the request should be for fulfilling the 35 with a combination of on-site and off-site. Just to clarify that. And then if off-site parking is the solution for this project, I just wanted to bring to the town's attention that there are no sidewalks, street lights, or crosswalks serving that property presently. So there has to be some thought to public safety and infrastructure that needs to be done to allow 140 pedestrians to get to this property, or bicycles. And West Willard, as you all know, is a heavily traveled thoroughfare. It serves the high school, the golf course, the winery, and a bunch of residential neighborhoods. So, I mean, I would hate to have, new student drivers having to deal with, 140 pedestrians trying to cross the street simultaneously. I have examples like Toby's Dinner Theater or the Olney Dinner Theater. They have extensive parking facilities for their patrons, and it is an absolute zoo trying to get out of there after performances. The roads back up all the way to Columbia Pike for Toby specifically. So I just wanted to make sure that the town hears that, and I hope you share my concern for public safety and access. So these are the same comments I've made the last 3 meetings. I don't know if there's been any advancement with how Riverworks plans to fulfill the parking requirement. And then, of course, if you issue a variance, Riverworks might be great people, but who knows, if that property would ever be sold and those entitlements transferred to a different, maybe a for-profit operator. I'm not sure how this variance would convey to other owners that might not be so socially conscious. But anyway, I don't mean to take up any more of your time. You have my comments in writing, and I appreciate your consideration.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. That's all we have? Very good. Any announcements from the staff?
Right, so 2 things to sort of make your awareness. One, we were talking about it with those who were here, just scheduling the work session for next week on the comp plan. We received the latest updated draft from Wallace Montgomery about 2 hours ago, so we're still looking through everything.
You haven't finished it yet?
I did one pass through and wrote a few things down, so we're getting there. What my thought was is doing it next Thursday, since everybody but Chuck could do either date, then that was how we were sort of going to approach it. In terms of timing, we could do it at 7, we could do it earlier. Lexi, who I think just got on, let's see if I need to. She's there, okay. Just confirm with her what the timing is, given where she's at. So that was sort of my main thing there. And then secondly, for next month's meeting, we will we'll potentially have some public improvement agreements to look at for Bricken and potentially next door, maybe, we'll see. We were going over those. There will probably be a park name recommendation related to Fishpool as well for one of the parks there. The Parks Board will take that up at their next meeting. So those are sort of the 2 general comments that I had.
Before we go too far, I forget, Lexi, can you hear us? Are you here?
Yes, I can hear you guys just fine.
right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, good to see you.
Good to be here.
Happy New Year.
Same.
Next Thursday works for you. What's a Eastern Standard Time that works for you next Thursday? You're really the only one that has much of a.
Good question. Give me 2 seconds to pull my
Absolutely.
schedule real quick for next Thursday. I suspected that any time after 6 your time, but let me confirm. 6 or later, I think.
Would that be okay with you? I'd rather get started earlier than later, but if you
Yeah,
got
for sure.
family stuff, it's fine too. 6 is good? Is 6 okay, Lexi?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
6 o'clock your time is fine. 5 mine. I can make that work. In fact, I could probably make 5 o'clock your time work.
I don't think I can make that work.
6 is good.
Okay,
Niall,
6
were
it
you
is.
making dinner that night?
We could do dinner again.
Okay.
Sorry, Lex.
There's a chance I'll be able to join you. I'm driving 12 hours that day. It just depends where I am schedule-wise.
God bless you.
And that's the thing you'd want to do most is come see us.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, drive 12 hours and then join y'all. That'll be fun.
Talk about
Okay.
comp plan.
So I'll write up that
On the 18th. Got it.
agenda and such for next week and share that around.
Thank you.
And then we can go from there. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Wade?
Nope, that's it.
All right.
Thank you. And
Hopefully we have the comp plan to look at.
Yeah, Wade, I sent you an email with the latest.
I know, I'm teasing.
Okay. Just making sure.
any announcements from the,
No, sir.
you said you had announcements.
I said I didn't have an
Oh, it didn't.
Yeah.
You told me now. Sorry, I misheard you. I was,
That's all right.
it's a big letdown.
Maybe I misspoke.
No, you didn't. All right, approval of minutes. Has anybody had the chance to read the minutes of the December 13th meeting? Any questions, comments, edits?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from the December 13th meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. On to old business. Riverworks is officially old business. Discussion and recommendation on variance for parking and special exception 002-23, use outdoor theater for 17605 West Willard Road.
Okay, so we have a couple of just, if you want to come up. So a couple of things that I just want to touch on. So I shared with everyone the public hearing testimony that we previously got, including Peter's and the rest of it. And we've included that. One of the issues that were discussed by the applicant is about the two things, really. The use of the property under the use chart, and then the question of the parking. So I included in the packet a letter from the town attorney, Jay, who outlines specifically why, even with the off-site parking, you would need a variance. Even with any use that it would be, off-site parking requires a variance. That's part of the code. The other thing to say is that since the use is of an outdoor theater, that is what it is, that would require a special exception based on the code. What the applicant had talked about was miscellaneous use and whether that could be used, and then the planning commission could then determine the parking from there. So there are two things with that. One is that even under miscellaneous use, you would still be required to define the parking based on the number of employees and the number of patrons using it. So we'd still have to come up with a formula that fits those two things, regardless of the use. And then secondly, as we said, off-site parking would require a variance anyways, so regardless of how that goes. So what Jay's letter sort of spells out, and what I kind of said there, is that regardless, we'd have to go through the special exception and various process. So a recommendation from the Planning Commission to the BZA would be the next step there. And then also, I included in the packet and in the testimony the letter that they provided regarding the parking at St. Peter's. The town attorney looked at that as well and found that the form of it is sufficient for the town. And so that as a parking agreement, so therefore, that is part of the record for this meeting and for the BZA. Any questions? Yeah. Yes. Yes, sorry, yeah, the use is as theater, it's in the letter, but the use as spelled out is outdoor theater and then legitimate theater, because there's an indoor theater component, so.
So just to be clear, they need a variance to have a theater.
They need a variance to have the parking. They need a special exception for the theater. Under the outdoor theater under the code. So an indoor theater, legitimate theater, is permitted by the use chart.
Right.
It's the outdoor theater, having an outdoor theater, that would require a special exception under the use chart.
Can I clarify? Because Jay's letter says outdoor stage. Does it matter?
That's-
Outdoor stage or outdoor theater? Just curious.
It's part of the same
Got it. Just making sure.
thing. I mean, as you see I think it's in the second paragraph, he actually has the specific reference
Right.
to outdoor theater. And that is just simply, that's the title used in the use chart.
Okay.
And I think, to clarify, it wouldn't be the outdoor theater, I mean, the stage itself, the theater opens up. So
Yeah.
Right.
consider-
It's outdoor in there.
So
Right.
either one is outdoor.
Yeah. So the theater outdoor and theater legitimate, both, it's in the third paragraph of the letter, so both of those.
We're hoping that.
While you guys are thinking, Wade, I'd like to ask you, do you see any reason why we should not recommend this to the BZA from your standpoint?
No, both things. I think the theater itself, as a special exception use, will be fine with that. The parking is the issue. And as Peter alluded to, I think that it has now morphed into a variance for off-site parking rather than requesting a variance from 26 spaces. And I think as part of that, you may want to put conditions or recommend conditions to the BZA regarding signage for the appropriate parking, and then, signage for pedestrian walkways, and maybe even possibly having volunteers at the intersection of West Willard and Westerly to help folks get across the road just for safety. And those are just some thoughts that I had as we were having this discussion.
Yeah. So you recommend?
But otherwise, I think it's good to go, yes.
Okay, so you would recommend putting that in our recommendation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I just wanted to ask one other question, Wade. So the issue of conveyance, if this would convey to a separate property owner later, it looks how St. Peter's wrote it. It's use of overflow parking at St. Peter's by Riverworks, and it talks about Riverworks Art Center. So it does not look like this would convey to a future property or future business if this was to change.
Possibly so, but that's not even really that would be a concern. Really what conveys from our perspective would be the special exception use and the variance itself. And those are the things we would be, tied to look at, okay, is this agreement still good? A new owner would have to have the exact same type of use also. So it wouldn't, if the use changed, they couldn't have the same parking off-sites ability that this particular use does have, if that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
I think I remember seeing, if they, and I'm not suggesting that this is exactly what the people would do given the opportunity, but if they parked at St. Peter's, they could use the front, the Fisher Avenue front and walk along the sidewalk to a crosswalk and enter the property there at that corner.
Right.
So they actually could get there through sidewalk and crosswalk.
Well, I think there's a break in the sidewalk.
Is
Not
there, Mr.
existing.
Dees?
Yes, there are.
Thank you.
That's something we can address?
So that's one of the things that we've talked about for a variety of reasons with the Parks Board. They are currently reviewing priorities for new sidewalks and addressing existing sidewalks. So this intersection, for other reasons, the high school, a lot of the kids come out this way and up West Willard has also been a concern. So currently that work is also being done by the Parks Board.
And we have the right of way, we were allowed to put one in,
So there is a,
right?
there's a prescriptive easement there, and so it's 5 feet on either side of the road is what we have right now. So there'd be things that we'd have to look at in terms of exactly how we would proceed, but that was one of the intersections that was highlighted in that discussion.
Any reason this couldn't be, it sounds like your Riverworks project over there isn't gonna be open and functioning like in a big capacity for a year or so?
If zoning says that we can.
Yes. So, any reason why we couldn't get a sidewalk there?
There are reasons.
In a year?
The road's not ready for a sidewalk. The road needs help too.
Yeah.
I think it just to put a sidewalk maybe on the other side. Maybe on his side, but
Yeah.
there's divots and there's the elevation's a little funny in certain spots.
I also saw Peter gesturing, there's no lights, which that area is not part of the streetscape plan because that's too far removed.
So if we have the right of way and we have the motivation to put sidewalks in, I know it's an if, but are we also allowed to put a street light or two in there?
Those are things we could certainly consider.
Yeah.
We probably want to have the overhead Cobra-style lights that are currently there that Potomac Edison puts in. It's a couple of those to be installed if we want to go down this road. There's a lot of things to look at if we want to do this, and we should. If this is going to happen, we do want to make some public safety improvements.
Yeah, for
absolutely.
sure. Okay.
So I would like to voice a couple of concerns. The first is that it looks like they're required to have 32.25 standard parking bays, which with the 5 on site and the 27 from the church actually still leaves them one short or a quarter short. And I would imagine that we round up. Is that not correct?
There are 6 on site.
Oh, no, but one of them's ADA compliant. That does not count towards your standard base, correct?
Correct.
32 and a quarter plus 180.
We could put another one.
Sorry, when I approached the church, I thought the 6 counted, so I said 27.
They can change it. to
That's okay.
28.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my first concern is that the numbers probably should be corrected before it's all finalized, and that there should be 28 spaces minimum guaranteed. And my second concern is mostly because I hope it, but I really do believe that Riverworks will be wildly successful. And so in addition to the 28 standard parking spaces, that is the bare minimum for requirement, have you started thinking about next steps? Because I fully suspect that when you catch on, there will be need for more than just the bare minimum. And I hope there's need for more than just the bare minimum. Bringing that sort of people and culture into the community can only benefit the community. So have you started thinking about additional parking? Because I think it will be an issue in the next 5 years.
Absolutely. I mean, we're working on another arrangement with the Baptist Church as well. St. Peter's also said, oh, we have they said we have way more than 27 available. I was just, filling a requirement here. Then, what we're doing is offering sponsorships, in-kind sponsorships in exchange for these parking agreements. So we could continue to do that. There's a lot of parking
There's a lot of
around,
other parking.
and hope, we can highlight these businesses that are offering the parking and, have a nice mutual partnership. But that's, I've been driving around looking at various parking options for sure. And to me, there's a lot.
Yeah.
And again, it's all community-based. Does that help?
Yeah, understood. I would not be the person to vote against if you met the bare minimum standards, but I would also really encourage you to explore additional parking options, because like I said, I very much hope that you are wildly successful.
Right, thank you. No, it was like, we had about 4 weeks to have something before the next meeting, so I really just targeted, you know what I mean? But yes, in that process, multiple people reached out, and there seemed to be multiple options or
other
ideas,
options, yeah.
possibilities, not that I've confirmed or addressed any of it, but if you drive around, there's a lot of spots. So, but yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I hope that's a good problem.
Sandy and David, do all the things that Wade mentioned, like for safety features, does it all sound reasonable to you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Are you asking us to, I mean, of course
Depending
we'll
on
have
where the
lighting.
cost comes down on, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Because I was going to say something about the being so successful as maybe locals is appearing to be too. What we're looking at in the future is a parking problem in the whole town.
Yes.
I do believe this.
No, I think you're right.
Because if you want to be a small town and you want to have tourists that you're asking them to come to town, if they come to town, they are going to need a parking, and they can't just say, I'm going to Locals, I'm going to park at Locals. They're going to park in the town. And I think that in your streetscapes, you need to know that maybe I can't make enough agreements to cover all tourists that come to town, for whatever reason.
Sure.
And I just want to make sure that you know that we're trying to cover our bases, but we can see a future problem, that is not necessarily related just to us.
Well, there will be, in theory, some spaces added right over here, which will help a little. I forget how many spaces that's going to be, 20 or so?
25.
25, yeah.
I mean, we were just in Woodstock over the holiday in Vermont, and their main source of revenue, I think, is parking meters, just FYI, that's a tourist, you know. I'm not, I don't know if that's what you want to do, but it is and speeding tickets, like, this is how they pay.
They also, I mean, they are very much a tourist town, and so they're inundated on weekends.
Yeah.
But little things that we could probably learn from them is there are crosswalks everywhere, in between roads and everywhere, and everyone must stop for those pedestrians. This is something that I think we're going to have to look at some point everywhere. They have them painted. It is the law to stop.
Well, once we get our streetscape going, that's got like a lot of
that's what I'm saying.
improved crosswalks and
A lot of
raised
this to be
crosswalks
addressed.
and bump outs and all kinds of pedestrian safety features. That'll be good.
So if a recommendation were to go, both the exception and the special, and the variance go to the,
The BZA.
and then we don't see this again, it's in their hands?
No, so in order to, there's, the other part of this is the site plan itself. So because it's a site plan, it has to come back here for final approval, but the variance and the special exception have to be decided before you can make that approval.
Got it.
So that's just the process here.
Can I ask another question? Since Lexi noted that it should be 28 spaces and 20 instead of 27, could we make a recommendation if we wanted with the condition that the letter then says 28, so that they don't have to come
We
back
can make
for another?
whatever we want.
Okay.
We make the recommendation, not
All
them,
right.
so we can put
I
whatever
was
we want
gonna
in the
say, 'cause
recommendation.
for us to come back here next month to look
Say
at
we missed
just
it
that
by one.
when
Yeah.
we,
When is the next BZA?
So that gets scheduled based on need. So our plan was, once this is done and if we have a recommendation, to then schedule the next BZA within the next couple of weeks. So yeah, it's 2 weeks that you have to notify for. So there's 2 weeks in between. So basically tomorrow, we would start the process of scheduling the next BZA hearing.
I just would consider telling you guys that when you go to the BZA, because I'm gonna ask that if we make a recommendation, we say that you show some potential expansion plans in terms of additional parking. So just if you can get
If you
30,
get the
or
other-
if you can,
right.
if you have something else pending with somebody else, get it in writing and say, and maybe bring that to the BZA, just to show that you have that thought out.
Are you guys ready for a motion? Sounds complicated, but I'll try to do it.
I got it.
You got it? You want to do it?
Yeah.
All right, I'm all over it.
Well, let's actually do these in the right order. Give me a second.
Yep.
Yep. Thanks, Chuck.
Tactician.
Yeah.
All right,
Much more
so
important than I would've
let's
done.
deal with the first one would be the special exception. So I move that we recommended the BZA approval of a special exception for Riverworks to be allowed the use of a outdoor theater for their property.
I second that one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
David voted yes too, by the way.
All right. Now, ready for the second one? All right, try this. I move that we recommend to the BZA approval of a variance for Riverworks parking conditional upon Riverworks maintaining off-site parking for at least 28 spaces. In addition, Riverworks must provide adequate signage and crossing guards / assistance during events at the facility that utilize the off-site parking.
Very nice.
That works.
That's,
I'd also would like to recommend that they have a plan for potential expansion.
I really don't think we should put that in there, because I think that's actually part of our job, and I think that's something we're going to have to address as an overall parking issue, especially as we crack open everything in 2024 to address the new plans for the town.
Would we be able to implement that retroactively after they have us going?
I still don't see why
So-
having a plan for future growth adds any meaning.
Go ahead, Wade.
Let me jump in here. So from a legal perspective, we're looking at the code, how it is written now, and that's the parameters we have to work within. I
Right,
understand
so we can't
exactly
hold
what
them to
you're
something
saying.
that's not, yeah.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Stricken. Thank you.
All right, second Chuck's well-said motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Went out that mine would have been a lot more choppy and worse.
All right, thank you, guys.
Maybe this is something that's worth addressing for the 2024 goals, like to try to figure out like, if there's anything we could do, anything we want to do,
So, right, I mean, just to sort of go back on the street and things like that, I mean, that's one thing that we can look at, and as I said, the Parks Board has already started this process globally of looking at streets and sidewalks and things like that, for us to plan out budget-wise for future options there. So this is something that we can look at and
Right,
discuss
but
further.
the Parks Board can look at those topics.
Yes.
But parking is more of in our bailiwick, along with the commissioners, and that's something that I want to address when we crack open the town zoning code and the town code in depth later this year, once we finish the comprehensive plan, because we have a lot of things to address. And I actually have a large amount of material. I've already shared some of it with Wade initially. I've been holding off on you guys until we're ready to get into this year, but to some potential ideas to fundamentally address our parking issues in town.
Great.
Look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck.
Now, whether you agree with it's another thing.
Thank you.
You guys have a lot of work.
You guys. John, I wanted to ask you, I thought I remembered, this is not, yeah.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
Might have been back when I was on the Parks and Streets. There was talk about that improvement along West Willard, right in that location, and there's a lot of water issues.
That's correct.
Have they been addressed yet, or is that still?
We have a overall stormwater management survey for the Central Business District that's been done. As far as where we go with it, that's still to be determined.
Gotcha. So if we were to put in, potentially, if we were to put in a sidewalk, it would be sidewalk, water,
Possibly,
containment and.
possibly, but. with
No, that
little-
section up there is not the worst part. It's actually farther down West Willard. We have
Okay.
the real
Yeah,
Very good.
it's-
issues.
It's towards where the signage is, on the other side of that, where the graveyard area is,
Yeah.
and then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know where that, yeah.
So, but it's one of those things that's to be addressed.
We're gonna also reach out to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation for funding for good.
You can share that with us.
Work together on that.
Right.
Right, but the part that's our,
Yeah.
Anyways.
Okay.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Good luck. Moving on to new business, the Russell Branch preliminary plan. John, do you want to kick this one off?
Sure. That plan was received on December 15th through our office. Its current zoning is PR 1.5. No covenants or restrictions were supplied with the submission. Sanitary water and sewer will be connected to the town's existing water and sewer main system. Only laterals will be installed. The sidewalk along Fisher Avenue is to be relocated further into the property based upon the establishment of a bioswale for stormwater treatment. Along Fisher Avenue, Westerly Avenue, there's plans to add curb and gutter along with a sidewalk. This is basically following a plan that was established, back in 2007, 8?
7.
Yeah, it's fairly old. They do have some improvements to the stormwater management that's now called for. That has to go through Montgomery County for approval. State highway approvals are still outstanding. Montgomery County Fire Service will still need those approvals. Within the area, there is a forest conservation plan. Note, FC proposes a fee in lieu. As you know, the town does not accept fee in lieu for forest conservation at the present time. That'll have to be addressed. Also, there is a fee in lieu for the open space, but they were based upon the 2015 calculations. So that'll have to be addressed also. We are requesting to be able to go ahead and have the areas staked out for the forest conservation as proposed, which is in its Class 1 forest conservation area. We have some concerns as far as the slope conditions in there. What we want to do is, we may need to go in there and establish basically a stream restoration project as part of this project to lessen the steepness of the banks, and so we're not dealing with an erosion problem and losing trees in the future.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. There's a total right now of 4 houses to be constructed, but it will be a 5-lot subdivision. And the existing house, at the time of demolition, would need to be rebuilt with a new house, if that happens at any point, so that we're not having a open lot that's not doing anything. And that's my basic comments.
And then can you give us, so this is a preliminary plan that we're
That's
looking to
correct.
comment
It's a
on.
preliminary plan that's come in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Kevin Mack with with Dewberry, and I live in Damascus myself. So this project's been kind of off and on since 2007. Hasn't really changed much. It's just been dragging through, getting it finalized, and we've advanced it once again to a point where we want to come in to get a preliminary plan approval to get this thing finalized. And as I said, we're proposing to subdivide it into a total of 5 lots and build all of the improvements along the 2 frontage roads. Our plans are almost approved with SHA. We're in hopefully our final round of comments, or just getting it signed off on. With the 2 additional, we're rebuilding the existing driveway for the existing house up at the corner, and then a new driveway for lot number 2. The plan, that as we envision it, is that lot number 1 that has on the corner, that has the existing house on it, which is completely within the current zoning setbacks, that will stay until such time as the Quito family wants to move, at which point they would demo that and replace it. And we designed everything so that the same driveway, we just modify the driveway on site, so we wouldn't have to go back to SHA with any changes on that. We've run into issues with stormwater management with the county under the current regulations. They originally we were going to be doing this with overland disconnect, and they are not accepting that anymore, and the site does not have any infiltration. So the current plan is to actually build individual microbios in the rear yards of each lot to serve the stormwater treatment on site. We had, as we said, the existing swale down the middle of the site is forested. We're trimming a little bit of the forest back in order to make the new storm drains outfall to the grade on the stream.
That's represented by the darker green?
Yeah, the darker area is the forest area that would remain. And that is only a portion of the overall requirement. Our original plan was to do a fee in lieu for the remainder. If that doesn't work with the new rules, then we'll work to either do some, if the new forest bank for the town, use a portion of that, and any else would go on the rear of the lots on the western half of the site. And we'll have to work that in with the stormwater management bios there.
This property?
Don't really have any issue, I don't think, with going in and doing a stream restoration if it's deemed necessary. We were trying to avoid having to cut any trees down beyond what was absolutely necessary, but erosion is an issue, so we'll address any environmental issues that come up during the review. One thing that we would like to consider on Westerly, it's currently an open section road, and there's a very well-defined and rather deep ditch on the northern side. The ditch on our side, on the southern side, is nominal at best, but it does flow into Russell Branch Creek. So putting in converting that side of the road to a closed section road, whereas it would be the only portion of in that area that would be closed section for Westerly. Also, the road is very flat, so we have to put in several inlets along the road to pick it up once we convert it to a closed section. So I would like to get the board's thoughts on not doing a closed section for that road, still putting the sidewalk in, improving the shoulder, and putting in an engineered ditch, but leaving it as an open section for that. If that would be something that could be considered, we can. That's basically all there is. I mean, it's very, very simple subdivision.
We've got
Quick
sidewalk
question.
on,
Yes.
go ahead, Lexi.
Sorry, I did not have the advantage of seeing the plan beforehand, and it's kind of hard to make out. Can you tell me exactly where this is? Because I'm looking at aerial maps of Westerly Road, but I'm not sure exactly where does this fit? Can you tell me just location-wise?
Sure.
I thought it would be obvious, but it's not.
She can't see that.
Lexi, it's at the intersection of Westerly Avenue and Fisher Avenue on the side that
I
just
got it.
has where what we call the Keebler elf tree is. You know,
Yes, I know exactly where we are.
that's
Thank you so
that's the
much.
property.
I just sent you a pin, Lexi, if that helps.
Thank you.
Don't feel bad. I had the same thought when we started. It took me a minute to remember where it was. How big are those three lots on Westerly? Acreage wise, please.
They're like 21,000, correct?
Come on, John, do the conversion to acres for me.
21 is
Almost a half acre.
Half an acre.
That's all.
Yeah, they're just half acre.
They're half
lots.
acre lots.
It's smaller than I thought.
They're between 21 and 32.
Yeah. And the zoning is half acre lot in there.
Hey, John,
Yeah.
can you have him speak to the Fisher Avenue side of it there? You said the sidewalk needed to be removed back. There was going to be a bioswale along there, and I see that the existing guardrail is going to be removed. Is there going to be a curb there? It's hard to tell by the
Well,
plan.
Yes.
that was the original plan, is to come up Westerly and place a curb on the westerly side, and then that wraps around along Fisher Avenue. Right there, there would be a curb section.
And ties into the curb on the property to the south.
Right. And then,
'Cause I remember when that guardrail was put in and why it was put in.
because they were going into the house, weren't they?
I know, yes, exactly.
To protect the tree.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember sitting here for that conversation. It was actually a very,
Okay.
very long conversation years back.
We would prefer to not have the guardrail there in the front yard of the house, but
That radius in the past has been a problem with people coming around and going into the house, towards the house.
So, yeah, it's currently on our plan still, but I'd love to not have it there for aesthetics.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, and the design with SHA, they required us to move the sidewalk back to the edge of the proposed right-of-way line and create the bioswale for the new imperviousness.
In front of the sidewalk between the roadway?
The bioswale is between the curb and the sidewalk.
Okay. And how deep do you think that would be?
It's about 1.5 feet at the deepest. It's very nominal.
That's just to capture the runoff from the roadway
Yeah,
itself?
it's treating the roadway runoff and the sidewalk area, and then that's piped down to Russell Branch. Again, that's another problem we had with storm drain, is that all the roads are like almost dead flat right there. I did want to also point out that there are no covenants were proposed, because we're not proposing to have an HOA. The microbios are on each individual lot. And for simplicity, we wanted to avoid having to create an HOA just for treating microbios, because it really wouldn't, there's nothing else there that an HOA would need to accomplish.
So Wade, this comes into play that if it's going to be homeowner maintained, then the homeowners would have to have something with the county. If the town is to maintain the bioswale, or the town is inheriting the facility, then you would have to have those agreements that we typically have with all stormwater facilities, that, we take care of the minor things, but the county's responsible for maintaining of the bioswales. Or
That's
the
correct.
sand filter.
Yeah, very similar. We do have some of these set up like this in the first phase of Brightwell and into Tama.
That's right. The storm drain lines typically will have to have an easement over top of them, because that is one of the things that the town would have to maintain, the storm drain lines themselves.
Yeah.
Which may present some issues depending on how things align a little bit, because we're snug up against the existing property line between, it's the 3 lots on Westerly. The storm drainage pipe runs smack dab along the property line in the lower, I'll call it the lower Russell Branch project.
Right.
So these are things that'll have to be looked at in more detail.
Yeah. And the position of the bios was to push them as close to the property line as possible, to free up the rear yards as much as possible. But another factor in there is, if we need to put forest conservation along the rear of the yards again, we would need to jockey things around a little bit to make sure, because
It would have to be offset by 35 feet,
yeah.
all piping too, so that, I don't know that you got that much to play.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. Because the minimum width of the forest conservation area is 35 feet. And then on the, if you call the eastern one lot, the Fisher Avenue lot, we can't move that around a lot, because you do have, or can't put forest conservation over there, because there's a sanitary line that runs up that long side.
Yes. Yeah, the sanitary runs basically along the western edge of the forest preservation area.
Right.
And we will be clearing the trees that are within this sanitary and water easement. That was an issue the last time we were before the board.
So then, let's clear up the whole forest conservation and open space topic here. So
Okay.
John, your note's having a little trouble understanding your note.
There's a page missing.
Oh, okay. So one more time, recap the forest conservation requirements and where they're stuck with right now, because I see that. And somebody made reference to potentially using our non-existent forest bank, I think.
I'm sorry, we're dealing with something else.
How are they going to deal with their open space and forest conservation? What are their open space and forest conservation requirements?
Okay,
How do they plan to
so
deal with
open space, they have supplied 10% of the property in sizing for open space. Town has in the past accepted a fee in lieu for that, but it has to be calculated at the current rates, not the 2015 rates.
Okay.
Okay, the forest conservation, they're undersized on the forest conservation end of things. If they have to go ahead and do a stream restoration project in there and then a forest state, then they'll have to go ahead and place forest conservation in another location, which would be a forest bank location, which the town has established a forest bank already for other projects. Correct, Wade? Did I read that right?
That's correct. That's correct. And typically, the park fee in lieu money is accepted on a project like this because it doesn't make sense to have a community facility on a small parcel.
So just to put some solid numbers on it, the forest requirement for this site is 0.63 acres, and we currently have 0.32 acres of preservation. So we would need 0.31 acres plus anything that needs to be added because we would do a stream restoration. And would that be a one-to-one within the restoration?
I need to look at it a little deeper, take a look.
How much capacity, Wade, John, is currently in our forest bank? It's been a while since we've talked about that topic. I don't remember. Refresh me.
There's enough there for this project, I can tell you that.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, we'd also, correct me if I'm wrong, we'd also talked about using, I believe, that same forest bank for
Across the street.
the property
Donegan
behind
Townhouses?
CVS, whose name I just blanked on.
Donegan Town?
Yeah, Donegan.
And that's correct, that's already accounted for.
Oh, thank you. So that is already accounted for before we
Yes,
allocate
that's
a
correct.
third or more. All right. And that would come close to filling up that current
No.
tree bank?
No,
No, there's still plenty of room beyond that?
still some additional left.
Okay. All right, good to know. Thanks. I didn't think that we had that much left in there.
Niles, am I correct that this particular property is not yet in our water and sewer calculations?
I believe that's correct, because it was not, they submitted it, and it hasn't gone through any of the process yet, so that's why it was not part of the capacity reports.
Okay, because he did say that it started like in 2007, which puts us more than 15 years in the process.
Right,
So we've had Smith for 10 years.
so,
Oh.
yeah,
I wasn't sure if it was like already,
No.
No,
Yes.
no, we expired.
Yeah.
follow-up question. Do we lose the trees along the edge of Fisher right before you move on to Westerly? Will we lose that Keebler tree?
there are some trees to be removed, based upon the submitted forest conservation plan that was, I believe that was back in the day, because where the Keebler tree is, there was, that originally was supposed to disappear. Now we're gonna be losing, a couple other ones, which I don't see right off.
There's actually one tree that has been cut down, that's along Westerly, adjacent to the house. That one's already been cut down a year or so ago. And there's another one on site. Our plan is to not cut down the Keebler tree. That was one of the things we had discussed the last time we were here, to not cut it down proactively, because it's obviously a very tough tree. It's still there. So we will be doing our improvements around and keeping the disturbance as tight as possible to the actual improvements to try to keep the tree and hope the elf magic continues for it. But I believe the smaller catalpa to the south of that would need to come down. And then also the street trees along Fisher will be moved and replaced to match the new state highway cross-section.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
There's no connection on the south side of the westerly sidewalk, correct? That just ends before it gets to the.
It would end at the property line, yes.
Correct.
And that's just one piece of property between.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's one larger
The
property
corner-
to the corner.
lot. Something similar to what goes on at Lower Russell Branch along Hughes Road. It goes to a certain point and dies.
It'll be right at that property for both sides, huh?
John, do you have any thoughts about having an open roadway on Westerly?
Kind of, I would probably want to go ahead and explore the ability to go ahead and have an open ditch, but then provide swale cut-throughs along the curb, with the curb section, something similar to what we do on Tom Fox Avenue. If you think about it across from the Catholic Church, we were very successful in accomplishing that. That way, there's curbing there, and it always makes for a section maintenance issue an easier thing, especially with a road that's fairly straight but not terribly wide. People tend to try to hop off and get into the edge of the roadway.
So I have to agree with that with John also. I think you hit it right on the nail there, John. Because we've gone back and retrofitted curbs in areas that sidewalks were just an open swell, and it's very difficult to do, and it creates so much more safety to have a curb in place.
Okay. But we were only proposing it as a value engineering for both construction and maintenance. If there was an advantage to doing that, we can make the system work as a closed section
I'd
and
recommend
piping
taking a
everything.
look at Tom Fox down across from the Catholic Church and get an idea where how the sections in the past have been constructed, where we've had drainage issues. And we've actually done, another section would be Tom Fox Avenue in the subdivision. We ended up putting the sidewalk over top of the open section to convey the water to the swale. And that, people seem to be pretty happy with that.
Especially compared to what it was before.
Correct.
Okay.
Guys have any other comments? Feels like there's not much to recommend from us for the,
There's a couple of comments that need to be addressed before we.
right. And then the
Yeah.
conservation, forest conservation is more information needs to be done. So, yeah, it just doesn't feel like there's a lot to
Yeah.
spit out, but I agree, open to, we want to see some curbing and open to those ideas, I think is a good idea, is a good suggestion, however works best, you know, one westerly.
I think Kevin has my comments that I supplied
Yes.
to him.
Okay.
So if we can get some of those items addressed, then we can come back and take a look at it a little
I
deeper.
feel more comfortable with that.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, that was it, basically, yeah.
All right. Chuck, you good? Yep. All right. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you very much.
All right, let's talk about wastewater.
Yum, yum.
All right. Sorry.
All right, will we take it, Miles?
Yeah, you can take it.
Okay. All right, guys, hey, just like every year, we have the annual water and wastewater capacity reports. These are required by MDE. We have to produce these by January 29th of each year. They go to the planning commission. You guys have the ability to approve it, and then it goes on to the commissioners, reported to the commissioners. So what we do, we calculate a 3-year rolling average, and that's basically just to take away seasonal variances year to year. And you can see by the numbers from 21 to 23. Everybody have this in front of them?
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody has copies of it.
Okay, so you see, 517,000 in 21, up to 541, and then 485 in 23. And really between 22 and 23, not a lot of houses were added to it. I mean, some houses were added to it, but you see the flows actually dropped. And that right there kind of gives you proof of the seasonal variance, because we had a much drier year in 23 relative to 22. And you see the averages. It's the amount of going into. So all the
Uh-oh.
Wade, you're breaking up. We're having trouble hearing you, Wade. You're frozen.
here. So average of 500.
Oh dear.
So from that number, we go ahead and subtract the Donegan property, which is the Petrella property, almost. They've been allocated those. We have just 8 building lots that have been approved to build, and I have them listed out there. That gives another 2,600 gallons per day. And then we have the preliminary plans that are approved from Willard, Harts, and Bricken, which adds another 44,525 gallons per day that we will deduct from the 3-year rolling average. And that leaves us a net wastewater capacity of 176,000 gallons, 122 gallons. So also with this here, the permit, which is for 750,000 gallons, there's an extra 100,000 gallons per day built in it for I&I and seasonal variances. So really, there's 76,000 gallons of sewage capacity available per day. And then the second sheet is just how MDE likes to see it, talking in million gallons per day language, and how they talk about EDUs, but it says this exact same thing. Any questions on that one?
Yeah, so
Yes.
I had something in my mind, you sort of addressed it, but I wanted to ask. So our large drop in usage in 23, obviously, a lot of that's due to weather, range. How are we doing overall, and this may be a John question, on I&I?
So we just ran some numbers on it. We're doing really, the work that we did, that we spent a lot of money on, seemed to improve things fairly well.
Now, question on that. With as dry as it was the testing of that valid?
Well, luckily, the way we kind of got lucky in December, it was dry, and then we had a nice 2-inch.
Oh, so you just did some of that testing
Yeah.
in the last 30 days?
Yeah. I ran those numbers just recently. And the areas that we did that work showed improvement. The other thing that I was very happy to see in that there were some sections you remember the westerly area that we did a lot of work, right? So I did some calculations based upon the last storm. And what our normal flow into that area, from that area into the total flow, is about 30%, right? So when you get a big rainstorm, you expect that to kind of creep up, right? it didn't. It went down to 10% of contribution. So we really hit a home run on that part. The pump station areas that we did some other work on, we saw some increases, but not the increases that we used to get. I think that's probably due to the age of the infrastructure for the houses, not on our end of things, but on the other areas of things. So we're seeing improvements, and Wade and I and Niles and the guys on Tuesday, we're going to meet and we're going to try to do some additional testing in different areas that we haven't done any work in, so we can try to start to develop the next phase of what's going to take place.
So just so you guys know what we're doing, we have things called smart covers, and they're actually deployed around town in critical areas that we want to evaluate and be able to find in between a pump station and two pump stations, see what the variance is as far as flows go. And they're all remotely, we can just pull it up online, see real-time data versus rainfall. So they're really neat units that we have deployed out there to be able to calculate this. And Chuck, like you were alluding to, now is the time. You always have these dry periods where you do your work, and then you have to wait for these wet windows to come in before you can, determine what the success was or what areas need more attention. So we're in the process of hitting that right now. Like John said, we finally started getting some rain, so now we're into our, looking at data again.
Good. Thank you.
Lexi, did you?
Yeah, you were moving really fast. You said something about it's 176, but it's really 76. I missed part of that. Can you explain that to me?
Sure. When MDE actually granted the permit for 750,000 gallons per day, there's a built-in 100,000 gallon per day cushion to accommodate for INI, infiltration, rainfall.
Okay, so the number that we would work with would be actually 650. That's our concern.
Truly it is, yes.
Okay.
Okay. So now let's switch over to the water. And that was a little bit different when you look at the numbers. We're going to use the same methodology for the calculation to get the 3-year average. And here you can really see from 516 to 541, same number again, that's pretty uncommon, to 566. Now, we know between 22 and 23, we really didn't add a whole lot of houses because Westerly Grove was built out and occupied. What it was the dry season, and those seasonal changes again really show an elevation of people using water outside and pools and different things like that, which we can also see in the financial end of things also as far as billing rates go. So our 3-year rolling average there is 541,000 gallons per day. And again, using all the same method for deduction of all the promised allocations, we're down to 49,000 gallons, 122 gallons per day of available capacity. The 3 major preliminary plan approvals, the Willard and Harts, they have been approved by the commissioners. The Bricken property has not. So we'll move forward here. We're going to talk about, in December, we gave a report regarding the condition of our wells with the PFAS, them all offline, and what processes we're going through. Well 2 is still offline, and again, well 4 and 14 are still offline. EPA did not come out in December with the final rule for the PFAS, and so we still do not know how it's going to impact the rest of our well field. We are actively pursuing remedies for centralized treatment areas as well as GAC filters, the carbon activated charcoal filters on well 2. Well 3, as you know, is back up and running. But for these reasons here, the report, staff recommends that no further allocation be granted until the totality of the PFAS impact can be realized and to 2, well 4, and well 14 back online. Any questions with that?
So that would mean for anything that's currently on our plate or in our plate, Bricken and Russell Branch. That's it, right? It's currently, we've been looking at?
That's
Anything else?
looking at, right?
Okay. Good. I like that.
So
I was going to
does-
say the same thing.
So do I understand that this will mean a moratorium on allocation, and that Bricken, because it has not been allocated and Russell Branch has not yet been allocated, that those will be put on hold?
That's correct. That's the best staff's recommendation.
Okay.
Commissioner, you guys can have a recommendation to the commissioners if you felt that that wasn't strong enough or needed to be stronger, either way. But the commissioners do have the final say on that.
I do have a question back on the water, on the sewer. I didn't realize we were moving on, but that can wait until we're done with water, of course.
Okay. That's it for me. That's pretty much it for the water report.
Okay.
So our task is to make a recommendation to the commissioners, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, these water reports, the MDE requirement is that the planning commission approve these. The part I just added about the recommendation for no further allocations is an extra that I just put in, with the report.
Yeah, our recommendation, like we just did to the BZA, our recommendation to the commissioners could also have caveats and conditions that we like with it.
Exactly.
So I like that you guys, from a staff standpoint, did that, because I was going to make a even stronger recommendation. So my question for y'all is, beyond the non-allocations that are out there, do we want to consider any of the current approved, are we going beyond that to any of the current approved developments, which I think, Wade, that's what you were alluding to, and you said a stronger. Yeah. I'll tell you,
Exactly correct. That's a
until the
possibility.
PFAS
Go ahead,
topic came
Terry.
up, I was okay, even though I asked a lot of strong questions back in about a year ago, or early spring, when things came out. I thought things were tight. I still think things were tight, and then once you factor in the PFAS stuff, things in my mind go from tight to a little scary.
Yeah, especially since we have no idea what the EPA is going to say.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to
Yes.
assume their worst case.
Right.
I think it's always,
Absolutely. You're correct.
I think it's always smart to be a little bit more cautious, especially because no way to really go back on it fully, right? If it's built. So like, I think this would be a good time to be more cautious until we hear from the E EPA.
So wait, staff, Jay's not on, is he?
No, he had another, he was messaging me. He had another meeting he had to do.
I have a question. I kind of alluded to this and partially asked this a few months ago, and I didn't get a great answer. I just didn't push for it. So, with our current approved water and lots that haven't started construction yet, my memory is that we, town, at any time can basically halt existing construction on things that have been approved if we deem there to be a water issue. This is a memory of mine from many, many years ago. Wade, John, Jay, anyone help?
No, you're correct. Absolutely, you're correct.
I just want to make sure, I just wanted to double check that we have that tool in our toolbox if we were to need it, above and beyond the allocation stuff. Okay, thanks. I thought that was the case. It's been years since we brought it up.
There's also one other level
Yeah.
that we've not really talked about, and that's just the logistical obligations of each one. And we'll take Mr. Hartz, for example, who has 9, not a big chunk of a resource, but he's actually paid, because you have to pay for allocations now. Willard, while he was approved, has not paid for his allocation. That's why he cannot go to record plat yet. Now, I know he's probably going to be doing this fairly soon. So there's different levels to it also, if that makes sense. Where Petrola, he's been granted, and he doesn't have to pay for it because it was part of the initial 2001 allocation plan. So he is the most secure of all, unless you were to do a blanket moratorium.
Yeah, this is kind of why I had the J question lingering in the back of my mind. You know, at what point during a build-out of a subdivision does it become unreasonable / litigiously dangerous for us to tell somebody, stop? You guys probably can't answer that question, but that's it's been running around my head for a few years, and now it's becoming a little more, less theoretical, maybe a little more possible.
We can certainly ask Jay,
Yeah.
and then we can
Yeah.
come back with that answer.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to affect what I'm going to recommend tonight, but it's something, that I've had that question for a while, and it's now, again, moving slightly, it's still in the theoretical zone for me, but it's become maybe a little more, I'd want to know the answer for that. No, I don't think he can toss out his famous arbitrary and capricious on this one, because it wouldn't be, but still, this was definitely, if we were able to do that, that would definitely would be lawsuit city, I'm certain.
No, and it's been done, because Jerry and I had conversations on the Eastern Shore. There was some big developments that were happening, and they did put moratoriums in place. And I'm not sure what the reasoning was, but they went to court. I mean, the developer actually sued the town and actually won in the end for a certain allocation amount.
Who won, the developer or the town?
The developer did in this case, but I'm not sure the reasoning. You know, like I said, it's you can stop the building anytime you want to. We'll hold up in court is the question.
Right, the basis, and, yeah, I understand that, okay. Yes, I'd be curious to get some
Yeah.
general feedback from Jay, because again, it's been in my head for a while, and again, the whole PFAS discussion makes it a little more, it's not as much the capacity, how to phrase it right, it's the,
Amount
how much of that capacity is actually,
usable.
yeah, usable, so that changed my mental calculus a lot when we talked about that last
Yeah.
month or whenever. Okay. So to summarize that, I like the staff's recommendation. It was kind of right along the lines of what I had been recommending, is we don't do any new ones regardless.
You okay with the existing ones?
With that caveat that I just double checked with guys, the ones that are approved, that yes, if something were to happen, we do have that ability to have them cease. And for a lot of these, I mean, it's not going to be this summer that they start raising all these buildings. I mean, it's going to take years.
Right.
So that gives us plenty of buffer.
And Wade, this is something we can let neighbors know too, right? That like, this kind of PFAS thing is out there lurking, and like, you know, that at some point we may have to like step in.
Maybe everything is so fluid right now. There's so many unknowns that's going on with. You know, we're going to be pushing to get well 2 back up online, get some funding for that. Well 4 and 14, we're just waiting for the contractors to come back and do a startup, but then we have to test PFAS on that, and who knows what that's going to turn out to be. So we're walking a fine line right now.
Yeah. Sounds like water rates are going to have to be discussed in the near future.
Oh yes.
Oh. You guys have fun with that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So then you feel like just wording it as no future allocations, which would still remove Bricken because it wasn't allocated yet, and it was still, Russell Branch would not be on the table then, with no further allocations be granted until the totality of the PFAS impact can be realized.
Yeah. I'm comfortable with that, especially given the fact that, again, I wanted to clarify that we has the ability to stop development on some of the already approved ones if there's a substantial reason for it. So I'm comfortable with that.
Can I ask one question about staff recommendations? It has, until the totality of the PFAS impact can be realized and all wells are in service. We have wells that have been out of service for years. So all wells being in service.
No, and when I say all wells,
I know
it's
what you
basically
mean.
Yeah, which is the previous paragraph that talks about 2, 4, and 14.
So we just have to be careful with how we word.
Yes, and I'll be the one, I mean, yes, if you guys support the recommendation, and I'll be explaining to the commissioners, and when these people actually come and request allocation from the commissioners, even though they might get this message they still want to, I'll be telling them again.
Okay.
Wait, I get the sense from what you're saying that, I don't want to try to pin you down, I know it's a lot of moving parts and everything, but that we should probably know more about this in not too distant future, is that right? Like the EPA shouldn't be much longer than a few more months, hopefully?
That's what we've heard.
Yeah.
I had discussion with, some folks that are actually lobbyists for some of the water companies, and that they're saying by March they're thinking they're going to have something out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with Chuck. I think that the staff recommendation is good. I mean, I can't think of a time I didn't agree with it. And then to your point, Chuck, great point about, we can step in if we need to, if things get like crazy or dire or something like that, with the people that have been approved. So I'm good with the staff recommendation here.
And that's part of our recommendation or approval, I guess, of this report.
The recommendation from staff is already part of the.
Still only two items
report.
we have, right?
So, I mean, like one, we could tack something else on, but it's already in there, so.
Yeah, I'm listening to you and listening to Martin. I think Martin hit my thoughts exactly, right? I mean.
And Martin, when this comes up with the commissioners, you can, I think.
Elaborate.
It's one of those ones where I think we should try to elaborate some of the discussion and thoughts we've had, especially hit on that whole.
If we need
to,
Yeah.
it's there. Because even some of the commissioners, I'm sure a lot of those newer ones might not realize that power is there for the big we.
I didn't realize it until.
It's been years since it was even needed to be, because we're flipping, this is kind of interesting, just sitting here thinking, we've always said for, I can safely say a few decades now, that our limiting factor has never been water. We've always scoffed the fact that it's water. It's always sewage. Well, especially with the PFAS that brought in, it now kind of flips that around, so it's no longer sewage as really the limiting factor, especially look at the numbers. If I look at those numbers correctly, it's leaning a lot more so towards the water, especially with all the PFAS variables thrown in. Wade, do I have my numbers kind of right?
You're exactly correct. Yep.
That's a huge change. That's just come about in the last grand timeline scale of things. In the last blink of an eye, suddenly we've gone from a major change in our public stance on water versus sewer in town and what its impact is. That's a big deal. Again, and that's what it makes that whole. We have the ability to stop if we need to, because I don't know, it's been brought up once or twice when people, Jim or others, I put things out on Facebook, whether it's for town consumption, but now I think people really need to understand that very clearly, that the town does have that ability, and we will use it if we need to.
Yeah.
Or the commissioners will use it if they need to, I should say. All right, sorry, I'll stop.
That's good. It's a good discussion.
Big deal.
So if we're good, we can move forward on water, if somebody wants to do that. But Lexi still had an outstanding question on wastewater we don't want to forget about.
Sorry, what was it?
Let's finish up water first.
So were they two separate? I'm
So
sorry.
do you want to do, well, that's the question. You could do a motion that approves both of them, or individually. It doesn't really matter. It's the wastewater is the one that requires the state approval. So,
All right, unless you have anything else for water, Lexi, I think we're all good with the water report.
I'm good with water.
Okay. What's your question on wastewater?
My quick question was that on number 11, under questions, are there any sewer system upgrades, expansions, improvements decided on during the reporting period? It's just a yes. I was curious exactly what those were, and are those the I&I?
No, the ongoing construction at the wastewater plant, we are upgrading to an enhanced nutrient removal system. It has denitrification filters. So that construction's underway. It's an $8 million grant we received from MDE to do that.
It's funny, they just want a yes or no, they don't want to know what they are.
I want to know what it was, but thank you so much. I was curious about that.
I just think it's funny that the state of Maryland wants to know yes or no, and that's it.
Well, it's also their project, so.
Right.
Yes, and they know.
And they know what.
To piggyback on that real quick, Wade, once that's done, is that just going to keep us in compliance, or is that going to give us some additional capacity in terms of what we're outputting?
No additional capacity.
It just keeps us, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
Any other outstanding issues on wastewater? No?
Just makes the fishes happy.
So if we're good on both, we probably need to make a recommendation to, something I can't do.
Okay, I make a motion to to approve the annual wastewater capacity and water capacity reports written by staff.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
And Wade, I would, I don't, I know it's not important for general consumption, but the wastewater, that's why I waited till after we approved it, because it's not really, but I wouldn't mind seeing that 100,000 gallon per day buffer written out in there, so it's 750 minus the $100,000 100,000 gallon buffer, so we actually know what we're looking at.
Okay,
Thank you, Brian.
definitely.
I know it's not relevant to the state of Maryland in that report, but.
Okay,
Moving on to our last new business item of 2024 goal setting.
So, yeah, so this was based on a conversation that Wade and I had and sort of feeds on stuff that Chuck has talked about and others. And what we wanted to do was take the opportunity with you guys to talk about things like we've touched on a little bit, but going through the code, going through the zoning ordinance, the subdivision regulations, things like that. Those were goals that had been outlined and coming off the comprehensive plan, which we'll get to next week, is try to figure out where we want to start that discussion and sort of plan out how we want to address it. What do we want to see in future agendas, that kind of thing. So I want to get your guys' take on those type of things. That was the idea.
Well, we can spitball, right? I mean, it's something to be prioritized, but it's certainly the public service improvements or safety improvements that we were talking about, not just for the Riverworks project, but other areas around town where we have concerns for public safety, missing lighting potentially on streets that aren't included in the streetscape plan, crosswalks that may need consideration, stuff like that. So a review of some sort. And, Chuck mentioned it, but I wrote it down as they were talking, was parking, so.
So,
I have a bunch of things too to spitball if you guys,
Yeah, why don't we take this time to spitball, and then we can digest it and kind of prioritize and lay out a plan next.
well, if you look back at, I forget which chapter it is in the comp plan draft, we've had conversations about zoning, whether we make any actual zoning changes or not, at least possibly revisiting some of the names, descriptions, and other things related to them. So I would imagine, and we got that one. Then we've talked a lot over the last 6-8 months about things that all come back to the town code. There's some setback topics. There's our recurring property lots on corners. And also that's where your parking primarily comes into play, at least from a codification standpoint. I think there's some.
Building heights.
What was that?
Building heights, there's several things that are.
Yes.
So I think my thought is we need to crack open the town code in a way that probably hasn't been done in at least 20 years, if not longer. That's a huge one. But I think we also need to at least revisit zoning, and I think probably want to revisit, I don't know. I feel like we should revisit zoning before we crack open the town code, although there's part of me that also can see why that would be almost a chicken and egg thing.
And some of what you're talking about is in the zoning ordinance. So things like the setbacks and the building heights are both in the development chart in the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
So just for clarification.
Also, just as a side note, the Maryland State Forest Conservation Code is changing as of July 1st. So we need to update to the current one or to a more restrictive one, and that's up to you to decide.
I know we've talked a lot about redevelopment too, and we need to kind of set some stuff for that before it comes to bite us. So I think that should be pretty high priority as people are starting to redevelop certain homes in town and stuff.
Agreed. So some of the ones I had were, I mean, I thought about zoning too, Chuck, but I don't know, I might be coming at it from a different place than you are. I was thinking we should just take a look at all the zoning and see if we're happy with it.
That's
Like-
what I was.
Like, you know, the 7-Eleven going in across from the middle school, elementary school, you know, with the gas station, like, you know, that kind of caught us, and like, is there anything we want to change preemptively? I want to talk about, I think there's some stuff about this in the comprehensive plan about possibly looking at the zoning in the historic/art district, and like, do we want to like tighten things there to make sure that like we keep that, you know, kind of like our sort of like gem area. And I also think that and this might be easy, but it bears looking at the whole 5G thing that we wrote out years and years ago. You know, and are those, are the rules of the zoning that we laid out for that, are we still happy with that? Is there anything that's like changed or anything we want?
Refresh my memory on that one? Refresh my memory on that?
The 5G ordinance, like about like, you know.
Oh, sorry.
Like where, you know, where stuff can be placed and all, like, you know, that was written a long time ago.
That 5G.
Yeah.
Sorry,
that
I thought you were referring to an acronym or something I couldn't remember.
Right, no.
I think what literally 5G stood for. Got it.
You know, if there's anything there that, like, you know, it might be all fine as written, but like, you know, possibly to look at it and see if there's, you know, things have come up. It's because we haven't touched it in a while, and that could come back to bite us because, you know, we just basically approved it and threw it away, and like, you know, might be worth looking at it again. It is worth looking at it again, and maybe it's fine. Those are the ones that popped into my head. We may end up having some ideas too, once we go through and reread the comprehensive plan draft, like the final draft, you know, like with that sort of in mind, like, you know, what are our goals going to be? There might be things that pop out, like once you read that, pop into our heads.
Yeah. I mean, my first kind of, what's been in the back of my mind, I've been going this for a long time, is the redevelopment topic. I mean, if we really want to tackle that redevelopment needs to almost be kind of a lens we look through when we're looking at the zoning and especially the town code, because there's stuff in the current code that in both things are going to really restrict that. So yes, I concur with that. And the whole redevelopment is, again, that's a huge driver for me on a lot of this and the prioritization for it. Excuse me.
So we'll probably be discussing cannabis at some point also.
Yes. Marijuana.
Oh, I thought you said candidates. Going, candidates for
Are
what?
That's what I was like, is this an announcement for somebody right now?
you talking to us or someone at your house?
Yes.
No,
in fact,
yes.
in the zoning and code as well is another major topic.
So that's not written into our code now, I guess?
It's not, and state law is passed now. We need to catch up on that. I've been talking with Jay about it. We're going to bring it up probably in February to the commissioners.
Yeah.
And then it'll be probably kicked down to the planning commission for some details.
Can you expand upon that? Does that mean allowing to grow? Does that mean, like, what do you mean?
Dispensaries, it'd be dispensaries.
I mean, we are in the ag district. It was a fair question.
No.
Yep.
And I think, I mean, just personally, I feel like we are coming off of this huge project, and in some ways, we're finally hitting some momentum. It might feel good to kick off some of those really low-hanging fruits that'll be slightly easy before we fully, like, I don't know, that's how my brain works, or just keep the force going forward.
Chuck's thinking about being on the Appalachian Trail, trying to do some.
No, that's not working.
He's like, keep going.
You have a lot of time He to wants to do it
No,
now
well,
before he
I'm
gets
trying to
out.
think about seriously, I'm trying to think about what of these items actually are low-hanging fruit, because
Right.
it's interesting, there's a tapestry. You start pulling on one of these threads,
True.
and
That's true. But like 5G ordinance seems like it would be a quick, like, read through, is it still relevant? Do we need to tweak anything? All right, move.
possible.
Or like the state forest conservation update, that might be a quicker, slightly standalone-ish thing to make sure we're in compliance, or if we need to go higher.
Is there, if they publish it,
I've seen bits and pieces of
The
it,
drafts.
of the- well, it's law.
oh, okay,
It's already law.
Okay,
It's
that-
just we
that was
have
my
to have-
question.
We
That
have
was-
to comply with the law and
that was my question.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So we have some background material on that, but we can pull that together.
Good point.
Those two, I think, are pretty, but the rest of them are so interconnected. But that also could give us some time to look at some of these things that we would need more time to look at in depth.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be a lot to look through the code or zoning fully.
Yeah, and we have-
through all these lenses.
If we consider the topic of 2024 goal setting,
Yeah.
we have 12 months, and now we have 11, right?
And by the time
And
we started,
this
there'll
is
be
more than 11 meetings worth of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Sessions.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but let's set some goals. Let's not just, work ourselves to death and,
Yep.
yeah. Meaning, I think we should, I think next, I don't think tonight, I think next, next meeting, we should, maybe send some emails back and forth about what if you will give us
I'll give you a list. I've been taking a list, and we'll make sure that it's all there, and then we'll pull it together as part of the packet next time, and then you can organize them how you want.
Question, it's been a few years now, the current town code, the entire thing, is it online these days?
So it is online. You can get it. There's a couple of updates that are currently being incorporated to make sure that the online version is as up to date as possible.
Okay.
But we also have all of those individual things, so we can put a packet together so you can see it all.
Yeah, I'm just picturing the old
It's
notebook
yes.
we used to, I'm hoping
I can show you mine.
Yeah, but I guess I'm going, is that all online?
Yes.
Is it in searchable
Yes.
PDFs, or is it like old scanned images?
No, they're scanned images, but you can search them. You can Control F, and the code itself has linkable table of contents, which we want to do with the other stuff as well. I think to make it a little bit easier.
It is a mixed bag, Chuck. Some of it's PDF and some of it's,
But you can. But in most browsers now, you can use Control F, and it should find individual words in it. So. Yeah, I use it every day. That's what I'm
Yep,
saying.
good. I just read, I'm asking because my old 3-4 inch binder
Yes.
is many years out of date. and I'd
Yeah,
rather
yeah.
not have to get a new one.
Yep. Mhm.
Okay, good.
So we'll take that list when you can get it to us.
Yeah,
And
I'll
we
send-
can, my suggestion would be to everybody can submit what they think is a priority.
Right.
Rank them, if there's 13, 1 to 13. We can get some totals, we can see, we can discuss
can-
it at the next meeting and determine, don't have to go priority number 1 first, like Amanda's idea, but determine, knowing priority, how we want to attack them and lay them out.
I'll put them in a spreadsheet and then have a column for each of you, and you can all rank them.
You guys want me to make a motion? We done?
I think. I'm good.
You good?
I'm good.
All right, make a motion, we adjourn?
Second?
I'll second.
Well, Alexa be the second there, yeah. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Have a good night.
Thanks, you guys, have a good night.
See you guys.
Are we offline now?
I think he shut off the sound, so it must be.
Must be. All right. Have a good one, Wade.
Yes, bye.